Sham is a 14 years old little girl. Summer had just started, and she was looking forward to playing with her friends in the backyard of her house, to later on take a shower, have dinner with her parents, and then go to her room where comic books would be waiting for her. In 2014, Sham was me. She was all of my friends. She was strangers I never got to know. She was everywhere. But she was not real. She was inside of my head. Sham was a creation of my mind. I created her during the war in Gaza. She was my earliest memory of childhood. I still remember sitting in the living room of my house when I heard news about houses in Gaza being bombed. I sat there seeing pictures of kids with demolished houses and dead family members. You might think it's only logical that to grow up, you go through childhood first. You experience the innocence and carelessness of childhood before adult life swarms you. You learn about life one step at a time, one step up the ladder, one lesson and one mistake at a time. But these kids, they couldn't afford to do that. They were born grown-ups. They were born to be up the ladder with a single step rather than one step at a time. These kids play in a backyard full of blood rather than that full of sand. Sham is nothing like them. She cries over her parents not getting her favorite chocolate. And this is exactly why I created her. I created her for these little kids. These kids that went through memories of war that scarred them for life. In a study done by Muhammad Abdulaziz, a member of the Child and Family Center of Counseling and Training in Gaza, it is proven that 54% of kids in Gaza suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. One of which is a 9-year-old Amir Ibrahim al-Raqab. In July, on the first night of Eid al-Fitr, which is a Muslim holiday, an Israeli attack hit near Amir's home in Khan Yunis in the southern part of Gaza Strip. His uncle and 2 of his neighbors were killed. 37 others were injured, and Amir was one of them. The first responders could not find Amir easily. They thought he was dead, but they later on found his body about 100 meters away from his home, covered in sand. Amir suffered an injury to his skull and broken bones in his jaw. He lost an eye. Though Amir has steadily recovered from his wounds, the psychological impact of war has affected him and continued to haunt him throughout his life. Amir awakes throughout the night, haunted by the nightmares and the memories of his war. Every time Amir hears the sound of Israeli warplane buzzings in the sky, or the sound of thunder in the winter, or even a loud bang, he rushes for his parents for protection. Those traumatic events continue to arouse memories ever present within the memories and the imagination of these children. The permanent electricity cuts, the water scarcity, the continuous hovering of Israeli jets over the city, the continuous media talk about the war, all of these things destroy the futures of these children, which could have been so bright, and it causes them to be permanently haunted by the trauma. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, as defined by the American Psychiatric Association, is a mental health disorder that is triggered by a very dangerous or a traumatic event. Symptoms may include flashbacks, or having nightmares, or even severe anxiety and uncontrollable mental or physical distress to trauma-related cues. PTSD symptoms are generally grouped into 4 types: intrusive memories, avoidance, negative changes in thinking and mood, and even changes in physical and emotional reactions. Symptoms can vary over time and from one person to another. Now, despite the actual type of the symptoms these kids may have, I do not believe that they suffer from PTSD. Now, do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're not suffering from anything or that their pain is not real. All I'm saying is that post-traumatic stress disorder, as a clinical term, barely touches the enormity of the psychological distress that permeates the reality of this daily life for Palestinians. There is nothing post about a continuous, ongoing catastrophe. PTSD due to war better describes the story of a soldier from country X that goes and fights in country Y. He goes back to his home country and he is continuously having nightmares and fears about the battlefield. He cannot sleep and he is suffering from PTSD due to his experience in the war. As for Palestinians, this story does not end. They do not go to a safe place in which they can dream and have nightmares about their story. They're still stuck in a place where they feel unsafe and they have this fear of their house being bombed again. I think that these 54% of kids are being misdiagnosed. Treating a person suffering from PTSD requires different methods from treatments of what I call continuous traumatic stress. Continuous traumatic stress, rather than other traumatic-related disorders, focuses on the present and future trauma-related exposures and experiences rather than that which had already taken place in the past. Continuous traumatic stress is still not considered a disorder itself, and it still seems to me to describe the situation of Palestinians much better than any trauma-related disorders out there. Palestinian people are not the only ones who are misdiagnosed and are suffering. In January the 15th, 2014, the contained isolated village of Laguna Seca in Guerrero, South Mexico, has been attacked by a violent drug gang members. They threatened, kidnapped, and killed many of the villagers. This is one of the many instances taking place in which gang members terrorize villagers and neighborhoods in Mexico. For citizens experiencing this, the likeliness of them going through attacks and threats by gang members is very real. Their triggers caused by seeing gang members or being threatened again are also real. They are not false. Their trauma is ongoing and there is nothing post about it. One more instance would be acid throwing, which happens in so many countries around the world, including Pakistan. Acid throwing revolves around women or men having acid thrown at them due to the reason of maiming or suffering. These people are haunted by memories of violence. They are afraid to go out from their homes and they do not leave their homes and they cannot go out on the streets. Why? Because they are afraid that the person who attacked them is going to attack them again. And this fear to me is not false. It's something that continues and goes on and on. These instances prove that the high percentage of PTSD patients dealing with crises like war or chronic community violence should be better diagnosed. That being said, I think that continuous traumatic stress should become a real disorder and that these patients should be treated accordingly. Even professionals in the field misdiagnose. Even professionals that have years of experience and have certain degrees sometimes give wrong diagnosis, and that is totally normal. Sometimes the symptoms of disorder X are so similar to that of disorder Y that it's too easy for a professional to be conflicted between a variety of multiple disorders when dealing with multiple patients. And if it's hard for professionals to diagnose, how can we assume that a 5-minute Google search would grant our feelings a right diagnosis? I'm pretty sure I was not the only one who was Google diagnosed with depression and much more. The problem is we have this secretive love and appreciation and trust for Google. And if Google said we have disorder A, that means we surely have it. Since Google was found, there became no need for psychologists or therapists. If Google diagnosed us with disorder A and has a therapy for this disorder, then we have to go with Google. Why go to a psychologist or a therapist when we can do that? But seriously, our relationship with Google became so toxic. It became a platform for us to self-diagnose ourselves. It's so dangerous, and we frequently do it to ourselves on a daily basis. And I've heard multiple people self-diagnose, and I've personally done it multiple times. For example, people with mood swings often think that they have manic depressive illnesses or bipolar disorders. Self-diagnosis might lead to either exaggerating or belittling what we are going through in our daily lives. Language and our approach to mental health and diagnosis are both very important. By using better terms to describe what we are going through and our mental health, it becomes easier for us to approach them. By being careful with word usage, it becomes very important since it becomes easier for us to deal with our mental health disorders. Sometimes we use disorders as very light words to describe our daily lives. We seem to express having mental health disorders or self-diagnose ourselves on a daily basis. I've heard myself and other people saying the multiple things multiple times, either while being aware of it or very subconsciously. The first example would be college students sitting in the library, exhausted from all the work overload. And the first thing they would say in this conversation would be, IB is killing me, I'm getting depressed. Or, I just had a mental breakdown from this particular subject while not having a mental breakdown at all. A second example would be someone who stayed in their room a long time, or because they have a lot of work to do, and they lack human interaction for a long period of time. The first time they would see a person that is close to them, they would express their social anxiety and how hard it is now for them to deal with other people. The third example would be someone who is very stressed out from a specific event or specific subject or anything else, and they would talk about having anxiety, thinking that being anxious and having anxiety are the same exact thing. These are examples of things that I've heard in my life on multiple times. And not gonna lie, these are things that I also do and I engage in on a daily basis. And I strongly believe that as a community, we should change this. I do understand the point of view of people who consciously make these jokes and say that this is a platform and an opportunity for people who are dealing with things to better express themselves, and that when we talk about it, other people will feel safe and will feel normal to talk about their mental health, even if sarcastically. But so many of these depressed people are not actually depressed. So many of us that say we have anxiety, we do not have anxiety at all. If being sarcastic helps people, then I really want to know, when do we get to draw the line between what's funny and what's dangerous? And when do we start translating these jokes and messages into a cry for help? Why do these people have to use jokes or sarcasm to feel that they can talk about their mental health? Why can't we sit and talk about mental health in a very serious way? Mental health is a serious subject, and it's not something that we choose. It's something that we go through, but we do not get to choose, and this should be something very clear. We should not laugh about someone having clinical depression, anxiety, OCD, or any of the disorders. People dealing with mental health issues should not feel the need to be sarcastic. They should get a platform and opportunity to talk about their problems in a very serious manner. We, as a community, should be more accepting of mental health, and it should be less shameful and less of a taboo to talk about this. That being said, I still think that if people that are dealing with mental health feel the need to talk about their problems sarcastically to lift some weight out of their problems, then I think that we should allow them to do so. Language is a very slippery, confusing subject, but its impact should never be underestimated. The culture has continued to shift around the words we could use and we could find acceptable in the conversation, and in what context we can use these specific words. And exactly how sexist, racist, homophobic related comments are eliminated from our speech and in daily lives, we should also try to eliminate these shameful comments related to mental health. This negative usage of words can actually impact someone's life negatively. Having anxiety and see people around me put such light weight around it makes it so hurtful, let alone any other disorders and any other people who do not openly talk about their mental health. While saying that we have depression, anxiety, OCD, etc., when we don't really have these disorders, this can really belittle from the disorder, and it can make it harder for these people to open up. There are many words and terms which are integrated into our everyday language, which we habitually use, that can reinforce negative stereotypes without even us realizing. If we try to change and become more aware of the way that we talk about mental health, then we can fix our way of speaking. It could be the start to fixing the taboo behind mental health. Mental health should stop being joked about. It's something that people go through on a daily basis, and mental illness is as important and as vulnerable as physical illnesses, and it should be treated accordingly. If a real Sham is hearing this, I hope you become informed and well aware of the dangers of language when it comes to mental health. Sham, I hope you grow to help people in removing the stigma and the taboo from mental health. I hope you help them experience childhood one step at a time, one step up the ladder at a time. I hope you help them play in backgrounds, have dinners with their families, and enjoy the beauty of life. I hope you help others become like you. I hope you help other kids become like you. Thank you.